Good morning. It's Sunday. Hey, J Dog, welcome to the room. All right. Let's just leave that alone for now. I opened the room a little early today because, I was ready. So that was cool. Today is the full moon in Leo. I did a video on that if y'all want to check that out. For those of you that are watching this in playback, my name is Teri Hunter. I like to refer to myself as an intuitive astrologer. I get a little grief on that sometimes in the comments, but what I mean by that is that I allow my intuitive gifts to be infused into how I interpret astrology. So that's what's going on with me. Hey, just call me C. Welcome. Hey, Stephen, good to see you. I have to tell you, oh, hi, MK, good to see you. This Aquarius stellium is so powerful. And clearly, it is part of this full moon's illumination today somewhere over the next week or so, maybe even in the last few days. You could have had some personal epiphanies. You could have had some information that's come across that could potentially, shift how you move forward into eclipse season. Oh, I thought something was pulling on me, but it's not. So there's a lot going on. Small wildflowers, you're here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's so good to see you. I was hoping we would see you this morning. I just kind of want to do a quick little overhaul and tell you what's been going on. Hey, Funny Bubbles 3, what a fun name is that? I've been doing some videos. I did a video on America's Karma, and I really want to encourage you to watch that because the February eclipse hits the United States natal moon. The February 17th eclipse is at 28 degrees Aquarius, and the United States natal moon is at 27 degrees Aquarius. And, do I think that's going to usher in some stuff? Oh, God, we're already seeing it. So, check out that video. I haven't done an actual eclipse video yet, but I intend to do that. I also, what else did I do? Well, I did a separate video on today's full moon, but check out, the content. There's some stuff in long-term transits that you can go back and refer to these videos, and they're covering the Saturn-Neptune conjunction over from February to April and the stuff that we lay down and that we intend and that we focus in on during this period of time is going to sort of take us into the rest of the year and how we manage the stuff around us. I'm so distracted by the idea that your name came up small in like teal color today. And I'm trying to think, it's not normally in teal color. It seems different. I don't know why it hits me that way, but it's a fun color. So let's talk about this little stellium in Aquarius that's going on, because I really think that this stellium in Aquarius is there's a lot of having to kind of set boundaries. There's also a check if like a sort of a self check. Am I moving in the direction that's most authentic to me? I know I like the teal as well. Or am I repeating old patterns? There's so many dynamics that are hitting us from so many different sides. Now, I've got Neptune on my south node. I have the south node hitting my Venus, and then it's going to hit Pluto. And Pluto's a generational planet. So I do think that many people who were born, in the 50s and 60s who experienced Pluto in Virgo, as the South Node has been going through that sign, it has been really wanting to, release. I almost think of it like I'm having a toxic, excretion. And that's what Pluto offers in Virgo. And that South Node is also tasking us to step into a spiritual dynamic of seeing what that erosion, what that loss, what that shift in the dynamic, what it offers in opening the space up. And I think that right now, because there's an interesting energy for me in this Aquarius energy, because it feels very spiky, like people are pissy, like they just want to be mad to be mad. Well, J-Dog, that makes you a Sagittarius rising, and that's really cool because it's really tasking you to recreate yourself from your authentic place of fun and of adventure and of, the individual. And this is what I want to say, because I was thinking about, I really am resistant to whole sign astrology now, because my own personal chart, being a 26-degree Aries, really makes me mostly Taurus. And I have my moon in the first house. So I so identify with all of that, which just makes more sense to me. So check out your charts, because if indeed, there's somewhere, maybe this 0 degrees is actually in J Dog's fourth house, or you said fifth house, but it could be in Placidus. So there would be something about recreating yourself in almost a new adventurous way, from the traditions you'd learned, from the things where maybe even you've been invisible. Again, there's that Piscean energy. So opening up your chart sort of, and looking at the transits in Placidus is going to offer, I really believe, a soul's perspective into what's going on. I haven't looked at your chart either in a hot minute. I haven't looked at mine. I mean, I look at mine because I know it in my head, but I already know that the major transits going on with me are long term. So, because I've got Chiron on my ascendant opposing my Mars, I've got that Neptune Saturn thing on my south node. So somewhere I'm releasing old habits, and martyrdom is attached to the 12th house, So I'm having to look at all the dark sides of Teri, which is always fun and exciting. In fact, I'm a little puffy today from visiting that yesterday. Because I'm in a constant state of emotional awareness that goes like this, up and down like crazy. And this is and if I'm all over the place, just forgive me, because I love you dearly, but I'm a little all over the place because this Aquarius stellium, I think, makes us more kinetic, moving faster. Thoughts are going zoom, 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 and we're shooting from our past to our forward. And I literally mean our forward, because Uranus is going to go direct this week. It's going to be stationing at 27 degrees. So on the 3rd, depending on where you live, I'm here in the Pacific time zone. This is going to be a forward motion now, as we're getting to the anaretic degrees of Uranus. And who is running the stellium, or who rules the house where the stellium is? Uranus. So something is gonna pop. So I think there's going to be a lot of personal epiphanies. I think we're going to be setting healthier boundaries for people who want to anchor us into old stories, and then we're ready to move into a new version of ourselves. And I want to say this too, because I feel like as the stellium grows, and I think at the end of this week, Mercury will move into Pisces. I don't know if I got that. Oh yeah, Mercury moves into Pisces on the 7th. But all the other planets are staying in Aquarius. And I really think this is teeing us up for that February 17th eclipse. Because that eclipse is going to bring in something that's going to be emotionally charged. It's an annular eclipse, which means that the moon is the furthest away from the earth and the sun is behind it. And we know that there's a certain part, this backside of the moon, we never see it from Earth. So it's the hidden emotions, and there's a ring of fire around it. So I think what comes in at that eclipse time is being prepared for right now. So be mindful. And this full moon today could illuminate something about that. It depends again on your chart and how it plays out. And that's all I have to say about the transits for this week. It's good to see the chat moving and people interacting. I always get excited when y'all are here to support each other. It is beautiful here today, I must say. And my little Lulu, where are you, girl? Oh, she's sitting in the sunshine right now in her little bed. We're going on, we just had our 3-month anniversary on the 21st of January. And it's really weird because there's a part of me that just feels like Lucky's been gone for so long, and he hasn't. And I was missing him last night, and at the same time, so grateful for her. This girl is so funny. When I sneeze, she literally has to come save me, lick my face. If I try to blow my nose while I'm sneezing, she crawls up in between my hands and tries to lick my face. I don't know what her deal is with sneezing, but and I sneeze a lot as I've gotten older. I don't know why that happens, but it does. All right, so you guys ready to start your readings? She's a germ killer. She's a funny girl. She really can be the most zen, sweet. She's always very sweet, but she all of a sudden she'll have a weird moment where the other day she crawled up on me, and then I was kind of holding her, and I didn't really think I moved anywhere, and she yelped. So I don't know what that was about. She didn't appear to be hurt. I don't know if at some point, maybe it's a trust issue. I don't know about how she was raised or if she was spanked when she was a bad girl. I would never touch her like that. But so she has little weird moments, but overall, she just feels like we're a hand in glove, and that's so nice. So anyway. All right, so let's go on to our readings. As usual, we're going to start with the birthday month. And, if your birthday is this week, you're just action-packed. Your house is full, and to pay attention to that because it's your solar return. And it's an opportunity, Aquarius, for you to really, think about not what you've experienced and is that possible in the future, or can I experience the opposite, but really the idea that Aquarius represents things that have up until now been impossible. They had not been invented. They had not been, here's innovation. So when you're feeling any sense of maybe even anxious, maybe all this cluster of stars, Mercury, for most of the week, Venus, Mars, the sun, the moon. No, the moon is in Leo today. Sorry, that's not till 17th. But Mars is there, Pluto's there, Venus is there, Mercury's there, the sun is there. That's a lot. So my point is this. If you feel a little anxious and kinetic, that to me is some sort of true north trying to get your attention. So slow down if you can. Look at where your heart is really directing you. Whether it's possible or not is irrelevant. Now it's like, how much can I really connect to that? And that's why I think this full moon is so important, because the full moon in Leo is about, frankly, the self and the heart and the courage to move towards that heart. And that's what I think ultimately, as Uranus moves forward and goes into Gemini, and then Pluto obviously is already well into Aquarius. And now we have Neptune and Saturn coming into this sort of, I feel, wildly spiritual warrior going on, where I'm just taking a stand. It feels like the idea that thoughts are things that we can manifest, we draw in, we co-create with our willingness to believe, our willingness to put in the focus, our willingness to go through the wobble. All of that's going to start bringing experiences in that are going to feel magical. But they're not. They're alignment. I'm aligned to what I want. I can feel it on the inside. I can't see it anywhere, but inside I keep moving. I keep moving. Last night I was compelled to call a woman who's a client who had a baby 9 months ago. And I was just so struck by her story, because she was well past child, quote unquote, bearing years. And she worked very hard through a long 5-year process to bring this little soul into the world. And I was just kind of awestruck by the idea that no matter how many obstacles that she went through, the primary feeling was, I can't give up. I can't give up. I can't get off the train. I have to see it through. And that tenacity, which now to her is, I got to tell you, she was just like, like it was she kind of, I know she knew now conceptually it wasn't an easy road, but she's definitely, the emotional part is faded to black for her, and she's so entrenched and so in joy of what she has created in the way of having this child. So I think that's something that we all get to focus in on. How much does the inner rudder say, you got to keep going no matter what the obstacles are right now, no matter what anybody else says, you're too old, you're too this, you're too that, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, because I think this is a time for magic, and magic isn't going to come from listening to a bunch of sheep. I'm just saying. Oh my goodness, 14. That's such a beautiful time, honestly. I mean, it's kind of hectic at the same, to be 14, but when I look back on 14, I get melancholy. So much possibility at 14. Don't get me started. I'm like, I am one little moment away from just bursting into tears today. I have no idea why I'm so dang emotional, but I am. All right, let's start our readings. We are officially starting with Happy Birthday, Aquarius. Your tarot card for this week is the 10 of Cups. This is the card of great, great happiness. Yes, indeed. I've been praying for that for you. I've been honestly, I'll tell you, Small, I've been very emotional about you too this week. I don't, silence is golden, but I don't feel like it was. And I don't want to be intrusive, and it's, everything you need to do what you need to do. But I'm just sitting here in faith, and I'm a little worried, honestly, not about you, but about you, anyway. All right. Aquarius, 10 of Cups. This is, to me, you really got to check out this card, okay? Because this is connection. This is abundance. This is happiness. This is everything coming together. It traditionally represents the ultimate feeling of being connected in the way of family, in the way of the happy family, the supportive family. And as I look at this particular deck, which I usually don't use for other people, this is my private, I kind of use this for my own private throwdowns. But when I'm looking at it through the eyes of the collective here, I'm noticing a couple of things, like the bees that are flying around the thatched roof, and the rainbows and the cups and the butterflies. There's very much this feeling of not earning my happiness, but claiming it in co-creation, right? I have gone through transformations. I've been aware of my being energy. I have created a dynamic where my cups get to be, they get to overflow. I like the arching feeling. There's something kind of feng shui about that, that's saying that things, are still on a secular level. So I think this is a declaration for this coming year, that this is what you're claiming in your life. You're claiming bounty, you're claiming connection, you're claiming your happiness. All right. And you know what? By the way, for the playback, this is Aquarius rising that I'm doing, not Aquarius sun. I'm just wishing Aquarius sun happy birthday, because Aquarius rising is going through the redefinition of self. And I like Placidus because most of us, I think a lot of people who have, mid to late degree rising signs have things pushed up into the 12th house. And that's an important thing to pay attention to, because this is a karmic rebirth. Pluto will kill something off to bring this into your experience. So, and if for some reason, you look at your chart and you're like, oh my gosh, all these planets are in my 12th house right now. I always think of myself as a first house Aquarian, but here this is breaking up karma. Here's Mars coming in sort of surgically, removing what is, isn't served us. Where have I felt martyrdom? Where have I felt anger? Where have I been swimming in my frustration instead of moving my story forward? Venus redefining who she is and how she is an independent energy who co-creates her own abundance, and then we've got Mercury just really kind of like weighing in between the Aquarian energy of like things that you are so far out of the box, and then the mercurial energy of like the everyday conversations, the information. So here we go. Let's pull. Whoa. And everything flies out the deck. Hold on. Archangel Raphael flew onto the floor face up. So, whoops. And Rosetta flew underneath him, and that was upside down. So this is an interesting energy because all of a sudden I see an epiphany that helps potentially you reconnect with your inner child. And I mean that in a way that your inner child is the most pure version of yourself that truly knows what you want, not what you think you can experience. And that's why, you know, Aquarius can rule anxiety because it's caught between what it knows it can manifest in the future on a soul level that's magical, and then what the muggles expect in order to be part of the group and the crowd and, feel the love of the peoples. In the third position is Isaiah, but Isaiah is upside down. So this to me is really sitting back and getting clarity before I jump up and I move before I take action. That's the other thing about the Uranian energy, the Aquarius energy. It's very quick. I mean, it rules aviation and lightning and things that move fast in the skies. And, this may be a little bit where this gets to be really mused upon, this 10 of Cups, because you might almost be looking so quickly or going, that's a little bit of a challenge of the Aquarian energy, looking at the bigger picture, the collective, and not really realizing that every drop within the cup, is an individual expression of the whole. All right, and the final position is patience, because now is a time to learn and study and gather information. I think this is about going through this cluster of planets, going through your 12th and first house potentially, and just getting some sort of clarity. It's like, if you think about that 12th house, it rules the history of the soul, not just the history of the human and what you've been experiencing in this lifetime. So as my personal south node is being triggered by Neptune and Saturn in Aries, I'm becoming more aware of the history and the stories and the underbelly of how I've been operating that I didn't know I was operating. And one of those things is always trying to create value, always trying to create value. That might be why I talk so much, Good morning, Georgia. Welcome to the room. Glad to see Stephen here, our staple here, our OGs in the room. It's like family now. This is our internet tribal family. All right, Aquarius, let's see where we're going with our Archangel Raphael. Oh, now this is fun because, you do rule a little bit of rebellion and can be slightly stingy. So here, there's an epiphany about the wasp energy within you. And and I kind of go because the wasp is retaliation, and not that Aquarius rules retaliation, but it does rebel against that which does not suit its independence. So you might, think about how you're showing up. Then we have the Earth Fairy, physical health, grounding, and foundations. This is interesting to me because I almost feel like when I'm looking at this, anything moving forward in this year, anything that you want to experience might have to be killed by Pluto, your anger, your frustration, the old story of exile, it's like, okay, yeah, it happened, but there's no changing it now. So why focus on that? It's just burned up energy. Welcome, the UK. Good to see you. It's a wet day there. Well, I hope the sunshine in the background warms you up a little bit. In the third position for our Aquarian birthdays, now this is interesting. Isaiah is upside down, and Isaiah talks about new beginnings and starting new things, but it's a pregnant woman. So there's still this energy of gestation. Now the card is reversed, and the movement card is coming up on top of it, which makes me think even more that it's not about not starting a new beginning. It's about making sure the foundation of what you're beginning is aligned to the 10 of Cups. So often as humans, we don't really realize that we start making plans and we start adjusting for the dreams that didn't happen, right? Well, if I'm going to be alone, I'll have a baby on my own. Or if I'm going to be alone I'll buy a big house. Or, you know, we start to weirdly adjust our happiness, because the patience card is about gathering information. And I think that it has more to do with where you might be in your more challenging Aquarian energy, where you're feeling, you know, that the sting of maybe not being in this 10 of Cups energy. And then potentially, you know, Mars is in there right now. Mars and Pluto are both in there. There's no way that there isn't crap coming up that has to do with anger, frustration, psychological. You know, it doesn't mean you're not right. It just means does it work for you, you know? And sometimes it just doesn't. So patience is being joined by the butterfly. And what did I talk about? The butterflies that had gone through a transformation. Welcome, Dora. And wasps are tactical fighters. So much of Mother Nature is so what is the word? I can't find my words. Symbolic of the characteristics of being a human. So here, the patience card is really about starting to look at how you're coming out of the cocoon, but also I think there's like a crazy Independence Day happening, and your ruling planet will move forward this week. I should say your modern day ruler. Saturn is also your ruler, and that's very, very important, because Saturn is here bringing up stuff so that we can look at it and, you know, demo what's rotten, what has termites in our brain, and then pull out what's still good, and then fill the holes in, because that's where your happiness is going to come from. It's not going to come from something being released. Because release doesn't really work for a fixed sign. It doesn't work for somebody who, you know, you can't look to the future without on some level pinging back to the past. It's just not, it's just how it rolls. It's just a natural, I don't even know about the future until I can base it on something back here. So if there's stingy, icky energy back there, I think you might have an epiphany about it. And you could even have an epiphany about other people in your life that are behaving that way. You know, maybe I don't want to be around people like that anymore. Maybe it's not me. Maybe it's them. And I'm just having a bing moment. Oh my God, I keep trying to shift this person and they just won't. Or love them out of it. You never know. There's so many things. All right. And again, happy birthday to my Aquarians. Let's go on to our Pisces, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Your card is the 9 of Pentacles. I love this card because it's about independence. It's about being seen, but not seen by others. I see myself. I get that I'm a co-creator. I am surrounded by the abundance that I created. I've been doing these meditations, you know, when I go to sleep at night, and I find myself not being able to actually fall asleep to them because I rewrite them. Like the guy's like, oh, I'm so lucky. I'm like, luck isn't luck. Luck is being prepared to receive an opportunity. And I step through that opportunity and I look lucky, because this woman has learned how to master that thought, this character, I should say, because you don't have to be a woman to master this. So she's looking directly into the camera, and she knows she's tamed, you know, whatever the falcon represents. It's usually a falcon. It's a bird of prey. So she's tamed her sight. She's tamed her focus. She knows when she needs to focus in on something and when maybe she needs to ignore it because it's interrupting her ability to move forward or her ability to be all she can be. So for my Pisces, this is an independent thought. This is an independent creator. This is a really favorable energy. Let's look and see. Now, if we go and we just think about, you know, Aquarius being your 12th house, again, I encourage you, if you're it's funny, my sister's rising sign is like a 2-degree Libra rising, and I'm a 26-degree Aries rising. So not only do we have completely opposite charts, she's starting at the beginning of a Libra energy, and I'm at the master class of learning about anger and frustration and assertion and independence and blah, blah, blah. So I find this all very interesting because when you look at your charts, and as a Pisces, Aquarius is going to be your 12th house, could potentially be a little 11th house. what are all those planets triggering about you being seen, about you being aware that you deserve to be visible, you deserve to have this bounty, but you have to co-create it. You have to sort of stand and look it square in the eye. Boom. Okay. That was the sound of a whip. Oh my gosh, Traders is so good, you guys, the new season. I have this weird, I look forward all week till Thursday night for Traders to come up on Peacock. And then it shows up and I won't watch it till Saturday because it's almost like I want to wait. I want to wait. It's so weird. I love this show so much. Anyway, all right, back onto our Pisces. Our first angel is Layla, spending time in nature alone. And nature is so beautiful as she is surrounded by nature for really calling forth a calm, a tranquility. There's something about just standing in almost like a forest and hearing a bird chirp. This morning on our walk, there was quite a lyrical sound to some birds in a tree. I couldn't actually see them, but we have a lot of crows around here, and crows are like, they yell. They feel like they're yelling. So I became very aware, and I kind of try to come into the moment, because this being in nature feels like it's going to help you with your perspective, with how you're viewing things. And because Pisces is so, I feel like you're like so fluid that I think you could easily have a moment where you feel that bigness of yourself within the whole creation. In the opportunity, the obstacle is Archangel Uriel, helping you deal with any frustration or potential anger that's been sitting under the surface. We have Oceana, but she's upside down in the angel's advice. So this meditation, or this spending time in nature, is really about reconnecting to a deeper part of yourself. And in the final position is Akasha. Now, Akasha is interesting because she talks about being a spiritual teacher, but I don't think that's true here. I think that there is a part of you, Pisces, that has a couple things going on. Number one, your ruling planet was in the last degrees of your first house, right? Really just calling forth this. You're about to walk into this Aries experience of bravely using your skills, being courageous in your voice, being a little bit more independent, when you think about it. And you could even have Aries partially as your first house, which would be even more powerful in that you're redefining the self. So this spiritual teacher card actually feels like it's you connecting to being visible, connecting to the parts of Pisces that transcend the physical experience. Because Pisces is very magical, which why, from a human perspective, it rules illusion. Because it, like Aquarius, can imagine things that are outside of the box. So let's now look at our Camelot deck. Layla's being joined by the Wealth card. Spirit wants you to spend time. What brings you, good morning, post it up. Wealth, what brings you a sense of harmony. That Wealth card to me is always a sense of balance and harmony. It's a 34, which reduces down to a 7, which has a very Libra energy plus a Neptune energy for me. So it's like that. And to me, Libra is very spiritual in its balance, because it starts to understand that part of the more challenging experiences, or the negative, actually brings in a greater appreciation, awareness for the light. Now, Pisces, where have you been frustrated? With the timing of things. The Raven is here. And also, this almost would feel as if you're actually struggling with like two sides of yourself. One part that knows how powerful you can be and how connected when you're plugged in to your soul's voice, and then the other side of you that like can fall prey to the human blah 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 blah, everybody else chiming in. Because with Oceana in the angel's advice, you're not being able to decipher your intuition. Is that your natal Mars in Pisces? Because that's a spiritual warrior, if you ask me, especially in the 12th house. Between Jupiter, wow. I'm always crying all the time lately. I feel like I'm a constant. I don't even know how much I didn't even know how much snot my body could create. Sorry, TMI. Okay. So Oceana is upside down in the Angel's Vice, and there's Merlin. Merlin is literally your emotional body is where you find your alchemy, where you find your balance, this, and I want to offer this too, because right now there is a very strong dynamic, especially with the stellium in in Aquarius, to have healthy boundaries with energies that are no longer aligned to how I want to move my story forward. And it is a polarizing. People are yes or no. I had a comment that I really had to exercise my consciousness, because somebody was just snarky for no reason. They're like, what's an intuitive astrologer? Just do the readings. And I thought to myself, and I just, I had to really, because, I am what I am. And if she doesn't want to hear that, I assumed it was a she. Isn't that snarky of me? Because there's something going on here where your balance and is about, moving, almost using whatever frustration or people who aren't seeing you for the independent, amazing person that you are, the co-creator that you are, the spiritual being that you actually represent. It's time to sort of move past that, or at least emotionally. You don't have to move past it, but emotionally, not giving up that power anymore. Akasha is being joined by the novice. One of the little challenging things about Pisces energy is it rules martyrdom, it rules sacrifice. And if up until now you've been sacrificing, for what appears to be the greater good, or to, sacrificing who you are, who your dreams are, what you want, Pisces, it's time for a new beginning, to step into new ground. And I want to offer this too, because this is an ultimate act of compassion, is not to be drained by people who will just constantly need your empathy or need your Piscean energy. Pisces is like the ultimate, like, okay, it's cool, it's cool, it's cool. And, I don't know if it's always cool. I'm so sorry to hear that, Sophia. This is where I think, honestly, something like that is a perfect opportunity for you to go, if you're a Pisces especially, to go into some sort of walk meditation and ask yourself, could I, you know, it's not about, do I sue my mom? It's like, will I feel the sense of peace and justice? Because one thing, is one thing bleeding into another. I have a weird thing going on too, where I keep going, should I go into this battle? Should I go this direction? But I really can't let it go. And that's starting to feel like maybe Jupiter is telling me, Jupiter co-rules Pisces, that it's not about not moving forward. It's about, what's my vibration? Am I angry, or am I settled? Am I really being, am I doing this because I'm calm and just as I execute it, or I'm trying to be, you screwed me, I'm going to get you back? Because if that's the energy, I don't think that's the way to go. But in any way, I digress. Because for my Pisces, this week is really, I think, about a focus as we go into this this eclipse in February, right? First one, because the second one is going to be in the Pisces energy. It's on March 3rd. That first one is so jam packed with little pearls of aspects that are going to be boom, 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 boom. So here, if for some reason you aren't able to actually address, just swim by, and you can address something later, because I think this is a new beginning of you starting to listen to your soul speak and starting to claim it, and not listening to the human muggles tell you, oh, well, you need to do this, or you need to do that, or blah, 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 whatever. Okay, let's go on to our Aries, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. You early born Aries, I got to tell you, early degree Aries, anything you have in early degrees is really going to, it's going to come up, whether you can't fight it. So, because what I mean by that is, like, if you're early degree sun in Aries, early degree like my south node, that transit of Saturn and Neptune is compelling you to really take a look. Because, Aries and Saturn, Mars and Saturn, they work well together. Yes, a lot of people concentrate on the Mars wants to move fast, Saturn wants to move slow. Saturn wants to be strategic. Saturn wants to build a structure that the big bad wolf cannot blow down, right? But Mars would be the one that built the first two dang houses that the stupid wolf could blow down. So here, what we're looking at is if something's coming up, it's about sustainability. It's about, like, is this particular dynamic going to make sense that will represent who I am? Aries. I am not always a crazy warrior. I'm not always angry. I am brave. I am courageous. I will go where other people fear. So, how do I process that for myself? Well, let's see what your tarot card is this week. The Emperor. This is like Aries all the way. This is you holding on to your majesty. You know what you know about yourself and not letting anybody tell you any different. I'll tell you, when people have asked me throughout my life if I would give up being a ballsy bitch to be a nice woman, I always say no. Nice people scare me because they never tell me the truth. They tell me what they think is the least controversial, the least confrontational. I don't want that stuff. I want the truth. So your card is the Emperor. This is all about Aries redefining the self, and you are your true authority. And that's what Saturn also will do. I think Saturn in Aries is actually really good. And the next 2 years, well, first it hits my south node and bad habits in my 12th house. Then it goes and it's going to hit my ascendant. So 2 years from now, I'll be 68 years old. And I'm sure I'm going to feel old, but I also feel like that's where I can really, by doing the work of awareness, by allowing for the redefinition of myself, by implementing healthy boundaries. Who does stoke my anger? Who have I tried to be a hero for and then felt that it wasn't even a give and take situation? Do I put blame on it, or do I just recalibrate that energy by knowing thyself? Because that's what this is about. Totally. The Emperor doesn't take anybody else's opinion to any depth. He knows where he's going and what he wants, and most of the time demands getting there. It's a Mars energy. All right, here we go. Aries, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Your first angel is Isabella, okay, but she's upside down. That's a timing card, so timing's not up. Ariel's upside down. Akasha's upside down, and Rochelle's upside down. All right, so this is really, because this is what I want to say too. A lot of Aries having Saturn, right now on the precipice of moving into Aries, there is a good possibility a lot of history is coming up for people. A lot of old stories, maybe new faces, it may be a new house, a new situation, but it's the same dang dynamic. Because that timing not being right, it's not that it's not right. You could be the hot side of the Emperor. Let me pull the rest of the cards. Well, that also would be, you have Chiron in Aries. So you'd have a Chiron return, which would very much have you redefining yourself and how that plays out in, the human structure really, with the good planets and the challenging planets, they box everything in. Very rarely do we look at things like a prism where, or a diamond where everything has its various light reflections. Because here, what I'm seeing is that Aries could potentially be thinking that it's moving forward on a platform, but there's an old habit being triggered. Okay, Isabella is saying, yes, the timing is not right for moving forward. The Queen is here. Very interesting, because the Queen is a receptive energy. Ariel is upside down, so your connection to spirit is muddied. The Cat is very interesting, because the Cat, well, it talks about healthy boundaries and talks about independence. I felt like there are 9 lives here. That whatever Aries wants to endeavor right now, especially if it's some kind of battle, some kind of revisiting of somewhere where your anger, frustration, your more challenging sides have been triggered, then this isn't about healthy boundaries. It could be, but it's about I need to stop and connect to the truth of who I am. The thing about cats, which are so fabulous and different than dogs, is that cats don't stay around. I mean, you can sequester them in a house and lock them in, but that doesn't mean that they'll connect with you. If there's not a true connection, a cat will find a way to disconnect. So here, I think what it's talking about is for Aries, this is about connecting to spirit, because Akasha, the teacher, is upside down in the angel's advice. It's being joined by the novice. It's recalibrating yourself. You may have gotten caught in a loop where things have felt fiery, things have felt challenging, or you're aware of some malcontent or anger or stuff that's still sitting in you. Because Rochelle is about honoring your heart, and she's upside down. And anger is the antithesis, the opposite of honoring your heart. Anger it fuels things, but in the Aries energy, it tends to churn, and it tends to get stoked rather than actually being an impetus for action. Anger can stop Aries. That's what I'm saying. Anger can be like, I can't move forward till I get this fixed. And that's what Spirit's saying. I don't think so. It's about slowing down, seeing yourself as a queen, meaning I'm a receptive, creative energy, independent on my own. Independence comes up multiple times with the Emperor and the cat. And now I get to connect to my soul, not to my guides, not to God, unless you want to. But what did my soul come here for? Because our souls did not come here to chronically suffer, to chronically feel the desire of our dreams and not the experience of them. So, I just heard some psychologists say that anger can often show up in the body and it can make the body very big. The anger kind of like, I don't know, there's something about unbalanced anger can reveal itself in size. Because at the end of this, or in the angel's advice, this new beginning, you're still practicing, a combination of physical and non-physical. And I really, Aries, with Neptune coming into your first house, that's exactly what's going on here. There's, my true authority is my soul, my intention for this life, my intention for experiencing the challenges I'll walk through, because the Grail Knight is asking you to really slow it down. And literally, he's bowing down because you have to reconnect to your heart. I'm not even going to say you get to. I'm going to say every action because this is where I think things get polarizing out there in the world. Because a lot of people are just banging around thinking that there isn't some sort of continuation, that things don't ripple out and they don't carry forward, and everything carries forward. So I don't want to repeat the challenges exactly the same way that I have before. And there's certain relationships in my life that I almost expect something, because Pluto and the South Node are having a dance in my chart, where something toxic is going to come back and challenge me to be responsible to it. Remember, Saturn rules responsibility. And then you might think, as an Aries, I'm angry, I must be responsible to this, but you don't. 5-degree Aries rising, this is going to be for you for quite some, this whole year, essentially. Saturn will move off of it, but, Neptune's going to float around for a little while. And I think that's really The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. All right, here we go. It can be a motivator, but it's like a fine line. And in this, it doesn't look like it's actually being a motivator, because there's not the awareness of that. Yes, and those degrees of anger, yeah. But, I don't think anger is a bad thing. I think anger is another measuring stick. It's just sometimes with the Aries energy, again, we see a little victimhood. I put my ass out on the line for you, and you didn't come back and give it to me, and or acknowledge me. There was no hero's parade, and that's where I feel like, know thyself, Aries, and who are you trying to be a hero to? Because some people, being a hero to them is an impossible task. Okay, onward and upward to our To our Taurus, rising moon, sun, and stelliums, this is an interesting card because it is a 6 of wands, but it's reversed. So this is a card where normally the character has been through the wars and now he's coming back and he's being recognized for his heroism. Speaking of heroes, let's see what this is referring to, because it could be a lack of recognition or it could be a lack of you recognizing yourself. Again, Uranus is stationing in the last degrees of Taurus, and depending upon your, the makeup of your chart, this could be, right on your ascendant. When Uranus went over my ascendant, I had I quit my job and I started working for myself, and I wasn't doing astrology at the time, so I didn't know it was happening. At least I didn't know the transit was happening. And sometimes ignorance is bliss because you're not afraid. You're just mad. But let's see what's going on, Taurus. All right, our first angel is Adriana. She says she's leading you towards the answers to your prayers. Xana is upside down. Xana is an angel of protection. So maybe you don't feel protected. Maybe you feel vulnerable in some way. Daniel is the angel of marriage, but it's also the angel of history in relationships, more so than anything, because that history is going to dictate how you perceive relationships. And finally, Desiree. Desiree is about conditions, not being favorable. Let's see where we're going. It really can, can't it? When anger is your superpower, that means that you know how to use your sword. And that's all, that's Aries mastery. I do not think we should ever try to extinguish our anger. There's a reason it's there. I worked with this astrologer, Brian Coulter. He was teaching me to do past lives. And when we would get to the last degrees of a sign, he would throw it away and he would go to the next sign. And that used to bother me so much and since subsequently I've learned why intuitively it bothered me, because those are anaretic degrees. They're pressure points as we move into the new sign. The reason I say that is because, I thought to myself, oh, this guy, initially I was like a little disappointed and maybe angry that, he didn't know what he was doing there. But then I realized that, no, this has just had me trust my intuition more and dig deeper for what was authentic to me. And that's why I call myself an intuitive astrologer, because I take braids and I rope them together. A little Christopher Witecki, a little Nikolai Stavanovich, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it all works together. All right, Taurus. Adriana is being joined by the horse. Okay, so now I know why the 6 of Wands showed up, because you're doing too much for yourself. And you need to start to allow spirit to lead you into something instead of trying to figure it out, because you're not feeling protected and you're harboring something. You're still musing about something that is not aligned right now yet. You're still in the midst of a journey of some kind. So let's see what this Daniel's about. Okay, so we have Merlin here. Now I'm curious, or I wonder if somehow this has to do with finances and resources. There's not a lot of money cards here, but Merlin is about alchemy and Daniel's about history. Taurus rules personal history. And here it almost feels like Taurus is overthinking something or going back into where they've been and preparing for that to be happening in the future. And I don't think that's necessarily true, but Desiree is saying being cautious. Okay. Desiree is asking you to slow down. So this is what I have to say for my Tauruses. Whether you realize it or not, Uranus has been trying to break up something in how you identify yourself, how you perceive resources, your security, your skills, your voice. And up until now, you may not have received any public recognition for the work that you've been doing. But part of that is because it's also about your own personal recognition. And within that recognition, you get to surrender to the inspirations that come in that lead you towards the next right step versus trying to overthink them. Because when you recognize the frog, there's a lot of noise in your head. That's why you're not feeling protected. And you're going back somewhere into your history where you had to keep managing things to create balance. And now Desiree is saying there's a transformation coming, or you're in the process of a transformation. So don't try to get to the end of the road too quickly or to see the manifestation. Really? You know, it's interesting. I don't think we really jive that much. He's got that Virgo moon, and while our moons are both earthy, I'm just so Uranus in Leo that I think I'm too outside the box for him, because when I come up, he always wants to make things like, not everybody in history was famous. I'm like, they may not have been famous, but they may have been famous in their neighborhood. I don't know. We just didn't really, I don't think we didn't disagree. He was more constrictive and I was the more Sagittarian one of the two, actually. But I have Jupiter in Sagittarius. Maybe that was it. I like him. I think he's a great guy. I just think we're a little different. Oh my God. Oreo cookies and Big Macs is the key to, I haven't had a Big Mac in so long. That sounds so good. I used to work at McDonald's and I love Big Macs. I was never much of a quarter pounder girl. Always liked the Big Macs and fries. All right. On to our Geminis, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. We have the Knight of Wands. The Knight of Wands is an interesting energy because it's upside down. Yeah, I do color outside the lines a lot, but I do it neatly and pretty because I always like to do that. But okay, Knight of Wands, this is an interesting energy because there's something upside down about my passion, my fire, my creativity, or a journey is somehow being slowed down, hasn't started yet. Let's look and see. Now, I want to offer this because while Uranus is at 27 degrees stationed at in Taurus, early Gemini energy is going to already feel that. The outer planets to me feel like they have like almost a wider vibrational ripple effect, because I've thought a lot about Pluto in my 5th house and how many people my age have Pluto, somewhere around this degree, and the South Node's hitting it. And I really don't take it personally in a negative way. I think of it more like there's a collective toxic way of being that's going to be removed. Big Macs are little Macs? I just saw on the internet that Jack in the Box got the worst hamburger of everybody. Okay, so Gemini, Serena has showed up. She's the angel of abundance. That's yummy. There's Archangel Michael asking for courage. There's Isaiah asking for a new beginning and allowing for a gestation process. And Yvonne looking for vulnerability in the process. Little Max. Oh, Laguna Beach does not allow any fast food chains. I think they had a Colonel Sanders, which I would never go to, and a Taco Bell, and I think both of them closed. But they're down towards South Laguna, and I don't drive, and I wouldn't drive to Taco Bell. Are they really expensive? How much is a Big Mac these days? They used to be like $2. That just ages me. All right, Gemini, Serena is being joined by the Hawk, which is interesting. Signs and omens. We have Archangel Michael being joined by the restriction card. We have Isaiah being joined by the mystery card. And then we have Yvonne being joined by the frog. This is interesting because the Knight of Wands being upside down. The Knights are the heroes of the deck. They're kind of, they're that virile age. And there could be a potential that you've got multiple roads that you could take and you're not sure which one or which one would fulfill you the most. That kind of is what it feels like. Like there's a weird, sometimes they tell you in meditation to try to have a soft gaze versus keeping your eyes shut. I feel like that's what Spirit is saying this week for my Geminis. Now let's think about the idea that the Gemini energy naturally trines the Aquarian energy, and there's that stellium of planets. And that stellium of planets is all the personal stuff. It's how we think, it's how we act, it's how we have value for ourselves. So I feel like spirit is trying, don't overthink this week. Don't try to see down the road. Give a soft focus. Go into serenity and then look for the signs and the omens, because the restriction card, I think, is really about taking a pause and then assessing about which direction. Am I somehow dumbing down my bigger passion? Okay, and let's just get real here. It could be where Gemini's like, I want to be in a relationship, but I haven't seen anything like that. So, and I'm this age, blah. So I'm just going to kind of throw that aside and I'm going to go focus on, I'm going to build myself over here. But the real enchilada is this thing that you're pushing back. Because I think that this is about courage, and courage to have focus in on what you really want and slow down so you can make a choice that's really going to move your story forward. Because I really think that this stellium and this new moon that's happening, trining the Gemini energy could bring in new thoughts of things. There's a gestation period. It's time, but there's a time to gestate on my choices. And that in the tarot, the Gemini energy rules committed choices, because now this is about being vulnerable and being aware of where your mind muses, or it goes back and forth too much, and it creates clouds. I feel like that's what I'm looking at when I'm looking at the Knight of Wands. All of a sudden, the volcano in the background and all of that felt like it's clouding. I'm going back and forth between maybe even practicality and things that feel a little impractical. And in this world, who knows how things are changing. So I want to say overall this week, I would be open to looking at signs. I would have a soft focus on things. I would also use and utilize signs that come from what appear to be weird places, like hearing a song on the radio or noticing a license plate and it, has some, it pops out at you in some way. Because I think there is what you're being called upon is your passion's upside down. What you really want seems topsy-turvy. And so you're trying to be maybe more practical and move that direction, but it's not going to be fruitful. And now is time to be vulnerable to the thoughts that are holding you in a certain pattern. And now you get to move forward with the awareness of those thoughts and then soldier through them bravely. All right, onward and upward. What? The price of a Big Mac is $5.79, and they're telling you that they go out to the pasture and that's like high grade meat. Is that what they're trying to say? That doesn't seem right. That almost seems like a bold lie. Pardon my language. Pardon my comment. Okay. Here we go. Cancer, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Your card is the sun, but it is upside down. The sun is the Leo energy. We know it refers to the ego, and oftentimes the ego is villainized in most conversations. Oh, but without a good ego, without a strong sense of yourself, without letting your light shine, your dreams aren't going to come true. Somehow you'll get absorbed by the Borg. So let's see what's going on with our Cancers. Lulu's such a good girl. She knows we're working. She's just laying on the floor, napping. All right, Cancer, our first angel is Azure. Your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Have patience and faith and don't try to force it. Daniel is the angel of marriage and history and relationships. Caressa says you're coming to the end of a life cycle, and then there's a new beginning, represented by Isaiah. So maybe your son is like telling you one story and Spirit's like, oh no, don't go there. Again, I have to emphasize that this Saturn-Neptune conjunction is literally bringing up, whether we like it or not, wherever that is in our chart, it is bringing up some kind of history. And that history is, I think, a lot of it's emotional and soul based, a story that we've told ourselves over and over again. And when you're a sensitive Cancer, I don't think that the sun is so, when you're in the house that the moon rules it, the sun is not, it's about other people, it's about nurturing. And now here we're upside down because Azure is being joined by the spider. I wonder if this is about connection and relation connection. Daniel's being joined by the emotional water fairy. We have Caressa being joined by the creative and passionate fire fairy. And then finally, Isaiah. Okay. I want to offer this because this is about, it looks to me literally like there's a new story coming for Cancers. But you've got to risk telling it. You've got to risk thinking about it. You've got to risk nurturing it in your emotional body. The spider always to me is a relationship card because I always think of that fly that gets in the web and it doesn't come out. It's also about networking. It's also about, on the face of the card talks about creative projects. Here it's about creative energy, about who and what you are and how you are valuable. Because if your desired outcome is truly to have a healthy relationship, then Daniel, who rules the history of relationships in committed relationships, and the water fairy, emotions. This is a somewhere an obstacle where potentially you're stuck on the story you've lived. Because why is the sun upside down? The sun also rules, I said it rules Leo, but Leo rules romance and Leo rules that spark, In the angel's advice is Caressa saying you're coming to the end of a life cycle. I think that's the end of being alone or the end of feeling disconnected or the end of whatever the dark period has been. And the fire fairy is asking for creative action. And that's where your ego starts to participate, okay? Where your ego starts to say, am I actually edging out exciting God opportunities? Because it's time to nurture the story you want to hear and risk that versus the story you've lived. And this is really what I think is the defining dynamic of these particular transits in 2026 and moving forward into 2027 when Jupiter moves into Leo, the nodes move into Leo Aquarius. It's going to be a lot about, am I really living the life my soul intended when I incarnated, or did I somewhere get off track? And in taking charge of your art career, it's just about allowing you to produce the art and then letting spirit take the action, to create the resources, the connections, the relationships for the opportunities. You're walking by something. I was walking down the street the other day and with my dog, and I don't carry business cards anymore. I don't carry my phone with me. I just go with my dog. And I ended up talking to these two women, and astrology came up and they were familiar, and I didn't have anything to pass out. So I think what you might start to think about, Sophia, is, am I prepared for, spirit to bring me opportunities? And in that, will I have my card? Will I have my website? Will I have whatever I need? I'd start risk really planning it out, or not planning. I use that in a creative way. Okay, let's go on to our Leos, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Okay, your card is the Four of Pentacles. The Four of Pentacles is an interesting energy because it's a stuck energy. It's sort of holding on to something. There's something been hitting me in these cards lately, and I don't know what this means. And I'm going to have to go try to Google it. In the very first reading, I noticed a CM in the house structure, and there it is. And now here I notice a CM. Will somebody Google what does a C, capital M potentially symbolize in the tarot? Because it's here at the bottom of this card, and I'm very curious. It seems like it must mean something. Well, if you were very famous once, then you're still very famous, and you just get to activate that part of fame that you like, not the part you don't like. All right, here we go. Leo, Four of Pentacles. Where are we feeling like we're either stuck or we're holding on to something too tightly, that it's shutting something down or pinching it? Well, my benefit is that you're stuck in a snowstorm because you're with us today. So I'm excited. All right, here we go. Four of Pentacles is being joined by Archangel Gabriel. We have Grace and Antoinette. We have Daniel, the angel of partnership and history again. And finally, Isaiah. Wow, okay. Now, we know that astrologically, Pluto is opposing in the house of Aquarius, the Leo energy. So there will be something that mirrors something that creates this sort of tension where you have to sort of find some sort of common ground. Archangel Gabriel is a lot about insecurity and about the self-talk. And I wonder if that's part of where you're stuck. No, it's not a card. It's in the artwork. You see the CM in the bottom of this card right here in the vase. It's over here. Do you see it right there? And then I'll show you the CM in the other card. Do you see in the house right over here in the window frames, there's a C and an M. It must mean something. All right, let's go on. Leo, Archangel Gabriel is being joined by the stag. Oh, there's that pride. And you know what? You rule pride. The Grace and Antoinette is the card of compassion and seeing things from another person's point of view. And then there's the truth card. Daniel is the angel of history in relationships, and it's being joined by the king. This is authority, things pertaining to law. And finally, we have Isaiah and the communications card coming up. Okay. So I want to offer this for my Leos, okay? Because Leo is really, honestly, Leo is more sensitive than anybody realizes, okay? A Leo moon, Leo rising, they're very, they do a lot of inner conversation, a lot of, they want to stand, they want to be special, they want to stand in leadership, but then there's this shyness about them, because I feel when I'm looking at this, there's been something where Leo's pride potentially could be hurt. I'm stuck in a situation. I'm still connected to the story of it because it's running around in my mind, and it's triggered some sort of insecurity inside of me. Now, Grace and Antoinette is about compassion, and I almost feel like the truth card is saying that you want compassion, and in order to feel compassion, maybe you have to have compassion for yourself and the pride you're feeling or the stubbornness that you're feeling. The Daniel here and the king is, you may be right, and what you're doing may feel a little like, well, I have to do this. I have to stay and hold myself tight. I can't just walk around and, I've learned not to trust, because I feel almost like this is where the rubber meets the road. We are all going to experience that our self-talk is part of the pavers that we walk upon, okay? And it's time to give life to new pavers, to literally, start to think about, this is the gestation period. This is protection during a new phase beginning. And here is the communications card. This starts with communications. If Leo has been hurt, which you may be, and you may be completely justified, but is the musing of this story holding you back from where you may want to be? And I actually think that there is the potential that if this is about relationships, because we don't know who's watching in the playback that's in the throes of, actively dating or looking for partnership, the angels are saying that a king exists, somebody who is balanced, somebody who is just, somebody who stands in the authority of what you want. But there's a part of you that has to have compassion for your history and potentially somebody else's. instead of looking for where you could potentially get hurt. All right, on to our Virgos, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Welcome, Susie. Yes, there's a full moon at 2:09 here today. We're coming up on the full moon. It was bright. Are you sure? Because why? I think that's, I don't know. Well, maybe this person thinks they were clever and put a bunch of CMs in here. I'll have to Google this deck and see. I don't even remember. I always throw the boxes out and the little books out and just do my intuition. Okay, on to our Virgos. The Seven of Cups. This is kind of a little bit of a challenging card because it's all about. No, it's not the Tarot of Dreams. It's definitely not that. The Seven of Cups is an emotional card. It's all about emotional confusion, too many options. Every option has a good news, bad news idea, and I can't make a decision. And this kind of could even be inferred as a worry card, because you're overthinking. And here's that South Node going through the house of yourself, who you are. So let's see where we're going with this. Because when I look at the card, and I'll show it to you, I'm not focusing in on the angel wings or the guy over here, but I'm noticing the rose. And then I heard, Poison singing, every rose has its thorn. And there seems to be a focus on that rose. There seems to be something that's saying something's still blooming. And maybe part of this Seven of Cups for our Virgos is about letting those other things sort of be transparent, like almost like breezes, that thoughts coming in and out or feelings coming in and out, but there's potentially a primary feeling, and that coming up and smelling like a rose. That's how that kind of plays to me. So our first angel for Virgo is Yvonne. This is about being vulnerable, but also being protected by the angels. Then we have Francesca. Francesca's reversed, so we're visualizing the dark side right now. That's the worry. Then we have Grace and Antoinette. This is about having compassion, and I don't think this is compassion for other people. I think this is compassion for yourself as you're going through all of this sort of back and forth. Hey, welcome to the room, Jitak. So excited to see you here. So happy to have everybody here today. In the final position is Akasha, the spiritual teacher, but she is in reverse. So here you must be caught in all the human possibilities, and now you've got to be vulnerable to heaven and to earth and to a bigger picture of what your soul has created. Is that Gita? Oh, it's Gita. Thank you. Welcome in, Gita. I said Gita. What a... do we also know, did I tell you I cried a lot last night and my eyes are a little blurry, a little swollen? I think you can tell. This getting older thing and looking back on your life with my transits, it's just like I listen to these old songs and I get all melancholy and nostalgic. And I don't even know what I'm crying about. That's the thing. I'm not crying about one thing. I'm just bawling. It's like a bubbling over. Okay, Virgo, you have to be vulnerable to the new beginning. And with that South Node coming through that first house of redefining yourself and literally trying to move. I wish I had some cucumbers or the time to put them there, but thank God I'm busy. But it's a good idea. Potatoes help too, raw potatoes and tea bags. But in any case, Virgo, your South Node transit, okay, is compelling you through the North Node to be dreamier, to be a little bit more into your soul's voice versus your physical apparatus's voice. And I really think that that's kind of hard for Virgo, because Virgo rules the sign of service to others. It's I don't matter. I got to take care of these people over here. So having Francesca upside down doesn't surprise me, because it almost feels like it would be the Virgo energy saying, I don't have that privilege. I can't just, not take care of blah, blah, blah. Let's see who's joining Francesca. The love card. Okay. So this is about redefining how you are Virgonian. And I want to offer this because I truly, truly think that Virgo has been inadvertently completely misdefined. Okay. Now let me just say a little story. Technically in the wheel, we go from the first house to the fifth house is our upbringing. And high school is the fifth house where we graduate and we go into college. Technically, we go into into our work, into our service, into the everyday activities of adulting. Okay. Somewhere, somebody took all the joy that we create as creative beings when we're young. We get on the stage and we're in the high school play and we're high school football players and we do the things we love. And then the business of adulting comes in and everybody dumbs it down and says, now go work at a bank. This is where you take that fifth house creativity and you bring it into your service to others, because the compassion card and the angel's advice is about you having compassion for risking what you love and fighting this seven of cups that's going boom, 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 boom. Well, what if I do this? And how will I be secure? How will I take blah, blah, blah? All right, where are we going? Final is Akasha, the teacher, and the magician, not the magician, the raven, representing magic, coincidence, and synchronistic events. All right. For my Virgos, this is not an action plan, okay? Spirit is saying you're on an emotional journey this week. Your ruling planet is in Aquarius, so it's thinking about the future, it's deliberating, and then it's going to move into Pisces, and it's going to feel a little foggy later on in the week. I think that happens on the 7th, next Saturday. This is about being vulnerable to the new beginning that the South Node has been calling, as it's been, excreting whatever is, whatever self-criticism, wherever you've tried to be perfect, wherever you've been dutifully attached to something because it seems practical and it pays the bills, but I'm so miserable. So if all you want to do is wait on people and that brings you joy and it's authentic, fabulous. But those that are not standing, because there's something here, there's an opportunity and an obstacle. The opportunity is what you love. The obstacle is how you're thinking about it. You've got to be thinking from your emotional body, because everything has two sides. The risk is that self-compassion of the journey. And then the final position is it isn't about trying to take action. It's about aligning to my emotional body and then taking inspired action. Okay, onward and upward to our Libras. That sounds fun. It seems like it would be very powerful because, that Freud lives in the 8th house of Scorpio. I mean, maybe not technically, but that's how I think of it. And I think Scorpio is the most powerful sign in the zodiac. It's why it rules such great wealth. It's why it rules such great criminal behavior, because it knows how to psychologically twist and bend those around them. It can be really, really powerful for the light, and it can be really powerful for the dark, as can all signs. But Scorpio is special in and of itself. All right, Libra, your card is, this is the 8 of Pentacles. This is a card of burning the midnight oil, of working hard, of fine-tuning something, looking at things you've already created and then going in and thinking, have I created it to the, how do I want to phrase this? I'm a Libra sun. So to me, I want to offer this. I love doing my astrology and I love being here on Sundays, but I wasn't loving doing the monthlies. I wasn't loved doing the moons every 2 weeks. I felt like I was on a hamster wheel and chasing it, and it was getting bigger and bigger. When I finally just said, I blew up in 2025 with all my personal stuff. And when I've come back, the videos that I've been producing are much more refined to my taste and what I want to produce. Libra, that's what I think we're talking about here. Fine tuning what you want to produce, what brings you harmony, what brings you balance. I don't think it's necessarily about having to work harder in the sense of action as much as it is about awareness. Oh my goodness. So Jupiter in Scorpio, that would be the teacher of psychology, absolutely, or broadening the deeper, levels of how we are imprinted and patterned. I've always loved figuring things out. I loved detective shows when I was a kid. I always knew the ending. I could figure out what the ending would be and who the bad guy was. I still do that to this day. All right, Libra. Our first angel is Adriana, but she's upside down. So somewhere you're not being led, and this could be really representing doing too much hard work. We're going to look and see. Desiree is saying conditions aren't favorable, but she's upside down, so conditions are favorable. Ray is upside down, so there's some sort of connection to spirit missing. And Chantal is about love. She's kind of a Libra energy, I would say, in this deck. And I don't think that this is going to be a relationship thing. I think it's going to be about fine tuning what you love, what you're doing, taking time to not to rush into it, because you've got to be led. And being led is through your soul's, your own soul inspiring you into action or into joy or into excitement. The one thing I've noticed about my channel and the videos that really get a lot of views are the ones I do on Saturn. I did one a couple of years ago and it got 10,000 views, and I remember being very excited about producing that video. And then recently I did Saturn at 29 degrees, and I think you guys saw that, and it's done better than any of the other videos. So it's really interesting that the planet of restriction and of obligation and duty is actually expanding me. That's Saturn's influence in Aquarius. All right, Libra. Now we have the risk card joining Adriana. So literally, you're being called upon to do the fine tuning of risking, letting spirit lead you through inspiration. Desiree is upside down saying conditions aren't favorable, but now we have the birth and the rebirth card. So I almost feel like this could be Libra dragging its feet a little bit, thinking, oh my God, if I really, move towards my heart's desires, it's going to be so much work, so much work. Ray is being joined by the restriction card. You definitely get to slow it down, girls and boys of Libra, and figure out where you're paddling. And if you're paddling from cooperation to keep things the peace and it's out of balance, that's not going to work. Chantal is being joined by the focus card. Literally, this reading for Libra this week is, and if we think about it, early born Libras are on, their sun, their rising, if your moon is early Libra, any planets early Libra are conjunct the supergalactic center, where you are understanding that you are a receptive energy, you're a co-creator, you are part of source energy. This is saying to fine tune what it is you want, to risk trust being led by spirit, that it's not about trying to take actions, but about allowing and surrendering to a rebirth. There is a challenge because you must be stuttering in your connection to listening to your soul. I think you're partially listening to it and then partially pushing it away because it may call forth something that feels a little challenging. But Chantal is urging you to focus in on what you really want, what you really love, at a very Freudian, scorpionic level, okay? Like, what is the deeper truth of what I need? Because most people don't actually call forth what they want. They call forth what they think they can get. And there's a big difference there. So this is about fine-tuning your desires, your wants, your focus in your life. All right, here we go. On to our Scorpios, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. I think I just put the wrong card in here. I did. There we go. Okay, Scorpio, your card this week is the Chariot. This is such a fabulous card because, first of all, this rules Cancer, and Cancer trines the scorpionic energy. There is a natural pull of two impulses in this card and the potential victory over that, but it doesn't come from taking action. The Chariot in all decks, we see that the Chariot somehow covers the base chakra. It covers that fight or flight. It compels us to move up to those higher vibrations of what we know about the human experience, and that it is inherently one of contrast. So let's see where this is taking us. Because there's a regalness to this particular deck. And for the, usually you see a male character as the charioteer, but here we see a female, and I think that might even refer to the idea of receiving. I'm a co-creator versus the action, that I have to take action to create something. Now your ruling planet is squaring you. That's the other thing. And potentially both your ruling planets, depending upon, the degree of your scorpionic energy, and all the other planets in Aquarius right now. But Pluto is going to hang out for a while, and even Mars. So you want to pay attention to that. I don't know much about Hecate. I think that's how you say that. It sounds like a Pam Gregory asteroid. Okay, here we go, Scorpio. Hey, sweet girl. How was your nap? Did you have a good nap? All right, Scorpio. Seraphina is in foundational position, but she's upside down. She represents happy families. Bridget is about looking deeper, but she's upside down. Astera is upside down, and is Archangel Michael. Okay, that is what looks like part of the push-pull for Scorpio this week. How funny. It just sounded like her. I think so too, Susie. I can't help it. I'm just really, that's my moon in the first house. I think astrology is so beautiful because there's so much in the stars to play with. And some of us tend to just, go to the default of what we think. And I think that's what I've been doing. And now I'm really broadening and finding that it's those malefics that really intrigue me, or the supposed malefics, as I like to think of them. And, I can't help but think that there are so many interesting transits coming up. And I don't know if y'all saw the one I did about the United States. I'm going to do more on those because the United States is getting triggered right and left. And it is astrologically a poop storm. I don't mind saying so. And it's going to get interesting. All right. Scorpio. We have the cow, which represents abundance, asking and receiving. And then we have Seraphina. But Seraphina's upside down, and she talks about happy changes to the family. So this might be where you might be perceiving something as stuck, and that there isn't enough give and take. Again, there's a weird push-pull and a potential for victory with the Chariot this week. Bridget is asking you to look, Bridget is saying you don't need to look any deeper into a situation, because when she's upside down, there's something that's truthful in your heart. And then there's the Death card, which is interesting because that's a Scorpionic card, Plutonian card. Astera is upside down, and then we have another Plutonian card, the Birth and the Rebirth card. And finally, we have the Love card. Okay, so this is what I want to say for my Scorpios. There is something about what's going on with you this week where, if we think about the square, to me, a square, this morning, every time I started thinking about a square, I felt like I was backed into a corner somehow. And that might be why I was thinking that this morning, because your victory is going to come not from your reaction, but from I almost feel like I want to pull back as a Scorpio and either disengage until I recalibrate myself and not allow myself to react, because this Seraphina feels like an attitude. It feels like Scorpio thinks, well, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. There's not enough receiving. Things aren't coming and going. They're not reciprocal. Then Bridget saying you don't need to look any deeper, but there is that Death card. So there needs to be some sort of transformation. And that to me is like, are you aligned to your dreams? Because Astera is saying you deserve the best, but she's upside down. And it's when she's upside down, when she's straight up, she's saying, don't compromise. When she is here, there's a sense of upside down, means maybe there is a compromise needed, but is the compromise really on the outside or is it on the interior? To me, it feels like the interior. It feels like a push-pull between two things I know. And the thing about the charioteer in most decks is that there is stars above the head. There are moons represented as part of the armor. And so your true feelings, your true emotional body is where you are most authentic in your truth. Because this is saying there's a part of you that might be stuck in a bit of pride, because I've got this Archangel Michael's upside down, and then there's the love card. So I think that this is an opportunity for you to, no matter your age, to start to muse on the things that you want. If you can't imagine a happy family because you haven't experienced it, then maybe, you start to tell a story that isn't sound magical, but sounds plausible. I have a friend family, I almost feel like it's taking it in deeper steps, because somewhere when we get into that fixed energy, we tend to unconsciously perpetrate the same thing over and over again. The big thing I get here is that the key to the rebirth is to focus in on what you want, not where you've been. And that is a little bit of the real challenging side of Scorpio. It is hurt. When it's hurt deeply, and it doesn't forget. So a little challenge there. All right, onward to our Sagittariuses and then our Capricorns, and then we are done for the day. There's a show on Magnolia Network called Building Outside the Lines, and it's about this guy and his daughter, but she's actually his stepdaughter. And she's about 16, 17 years old, and he is such a good dad to her. They have such a bond, and that makes me cry, because we all want to feel the connection, but we want to feel the connection that supports the bigger version of ourselves. And when I see this little girl, driving excavators and moving boats, and houses, and she's driving the bus, and all these big men, construction workers that support her and are like, she's so cool, she's so smart, that makes me cry. And I start to bawl, and once I start, it doesn't stop. I cry at American Idol too, because everybody's trying out for their dreams and getting their dreams. All right, Sagittarius, let's see what your card is this week. Ta-da! The King of Pentacles. Oh, this is a lovely energy. This is like, talk about the riches in the material world. It's also about standing in authority for the things you want and your resources. Oh, post it up. I love you. You are such a wonderful woman. I love you. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Ah, I caught it. Before it hit the floor. Ow. And I hit my knee. Hold on. The wind blew and knocked over this thing. Hold on. Oh my goodness. That was unexpected. Okay. Let's go on. Sagittarius. Okay, so this is also a card of great wealth, material security, if I didn't say that already. And I want to point out that inside the Sagittarius energy is those very strong points where you are hugely pre-wired to be a co-creator, the great attractor, and then we have the galactic center. So you have the ability to download information, to go into meditation, literally ask spirit, where am I stuck? What's the block? Blah, blah. And then feel that inspired thought. Oh, I need to go look over here. And then the great attractor, which to me is the best of the bunch, because it's got a wide orb and it really is about the law of attraction and how I focus there. Was there an earthquake? No, there was no earthquake. I think it was just the shade hit this. I left the window open because it's warm here today. All right, and then I banged my knee, and I got to tell you, darn. All right, everybody, here we go. Faith or fear? Vanessa rules that. And how you're going to make your decision. Now, that's interesting because the king is here asking you to hold a posture. All the kings are sort of this hybrid of intellect and air, along with the whatever suit they represent. So this would be air and earth here. Vanessa is being joined by Opal in the opportunity or the obstacle. In the angel's advice, we have Francesca, but she's reversed. And then we have Bridget. That's interesting to me. You know, Sagittarius rules faith, if we think about it. There was a lot of movement. Did we have an earthquake? Ow, really hurt my knee. I didn't feel anything that way. But anyway, all right. Sagittarius, Vanessa is being joined by the Queen. This is taking charge this week for you. You know, the Aquarius energy sextiles the Sagittarius energy. They're, you know, being two houses apart. That's an activation. You need to activate a sextile. You need to initiate it. You need to plug the toaster into the electricity. Opal is being joined by the transformational butterfly. Francesca reversed is being joined by the king. Oh my God, it's the royal court. This is exciting, actually, to me. And there's the swan. Okay. You know, we're heading into eclipse season. This is going to be a huge, huge, huge aspects during this eclipse. Vanessa is about faith or fear, and the Queen is all about reception, a co-creator. You know, the King of Pentacles being the tarot card for this week is to know that somewhere things are starting to manifest in the material. The butterfly and Opal are literally, you are plugged into spirit. And as you start to allow for the journey of this discovery, because the king in the angel's advice is literally talking about law. And where you've been putting your focus is law. So you will manifest it. So you don't need to worry, and you don't need to, you know, try to be positive. You just need to continue to travel and connect. Now let's think about your ruling planet, Jupiter. Jupiter going retrograde in Cancer, where it's exalted. To me, this is a revisiting of everything. And honestly, when I revisit it, I'm not looking for detail. Jupiter to me is looking for, you know, that I almost want to say an idealized version of the Cancerian energy, you know, and how do I help co-create that? Am I standing in, you know, because the king of Taurus here, he builds that, he grows that. He stands vigilant and waters his garden and makes sure that protects it from the elements, because Bridget is trying to say that you are transforming. Something has been happening, but, you know, just because you haven't gotten to potentially the end goal, because you're still somewhere in the midst of this transformation. Now, let me offer this. Earlier in this broadcast, I talked about a client who had spent years trying to bring a child into this world and spent a lot of money and tears and time and, I mean, hormones, all sorts of crazy things in all sorts of facets of her human experience. And while everything wasn't working, 5 years is a very long time, when the manifestation finally took place, because the soul was ready at that astrological time to come through. During the process, there was a nagging, don't quit, don't quit, don't quit. And each defeat, even though it was hard, it didn't stop. That's the same thing going on for Sagittarius right here. This is like, you got to continue to look. You got to continue to see that there is transformation. Things are happening. They may not be exactly lined up, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but they're in the mix. If G shows up before A, we'll get everything sorted out later. Okay, so keep your eye on the bigger prize, because there's a lot going on here. And I think that it's important that, I think part of the journey I heard in my head was that this is giving you the resources to know that you're not doing something magical. You're doing something that's actually practical from a soul's point of view. And it starts with your being energy and being in command of that energy. We have a court here. We've got two kings and a queen. That's big. All right, let's mosey on. You know, I want to say this. I don't think that I don't know, maybe you have some planets in Sagittarius, who knows? And maybe it's just talking to your Mercury in Sagittarius, or I have Jupiter in Sagittarius. Um, and I do think, because I'm the way that I am, that's very strong for me. I think my whole chart is strong, frankly. I feel like I took a master class. Like I looked at God and whoever was up there and said, well, let's just get all this shit over with in one big jump. I can do it. And then I got here and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? That's exactly what I think. All right. Our final sign of the day are our Capricorns. And this is the Six of Swords. Another card of process, of travel, of moving from what has been sorrowful, been difficult, to something that's smoother and easier. Now, in this deck, it's interesting because the woman has a blue cloak on, and rather than having her head down, she has her head looking towards her destination. The ship itself is a swan, and all of the swords in this deck have a blue handle or a blue gem that's depicted on it. So this is actually moving in my thought process. Capricorn is going through this idea of, integrating that Plutonian transit of yourself, and now it's into the house of your voice. Okay. So you're still sort of adapting and still looking to the future and becoming aware, but things I don't think have completely settled, because this isn't a card of completion. It's a card of process. All right, here we go. Oh, that's because I hit the table with my knee, Susie, when I jumped up to grab the rolling glass so it wouldn't shatter on the floor. When things used to fall on the carpet, they didn't break. Now this laminate floor I have is like cement. It looks good though. Okay, Capricorn, our first angel is Indriel, but she's reversed. Then we have Caressa, but she's reversed. Daniel is in the angel's advice. And then Crystal is in the final position. My grandmother introduced me to astrology, and I remember she used to have to calculate everything by hand. Hours and hours, the work that they would put into the chart just to figure out what the chart looked like. Neptune in Sag, that's great. That's like a double whammy of spirituality. Did you see the degree of it? Because if it's anywhere near 14 degrees, within like 10 degrees, you have the ability to truly, through meditation and through creativity, to call forth that which you want to experience. All right, Capricorn, Indriel's upside down. She's being joined by the Burden card. Caressa's upside down and being joined by the King. Daniel's being joined by the Focus card. And Crystal is being joined by the Frog. Okay. Oh, well, that's 0 degree Neptune. That's like a generational new beginning. Okay. Capricorn, Indriel is the light worker, and she's upside down, and then there's the Burden card. Literally, this is the card of being, seeing yourself as a divine being on the planet, understanding that you are a soul versus a physical experience. So here, I think you might be having a little trouble. You might be in a wobble. That's that Six of Swords. It's a journey of, also integrating my thoughts with my new experience, because you are not at the end of a life cycle of your own, commanding of your own life. Okay. This might be a little bit where, because of the Plutonian energy that feels like something must be killed in order for something to live. Well, Capricorn is used to responsibility, used to being enduring, having to be the leader, having to prove itself to others by building visibly in the material. And this could very well be what the transformation is. Because this, again, the swords to me are a manifestation of thought, right? And here I'm moving away from something that has been burdensome, something that feels a little bit lost. And here it might be your light. And now Spirit's saying, no, it's time to take authority of that light and to start to focus in on your history of your connections. And I don't think that this is in a negative way. I think it's in a way where your Capricorn tendency to be more practical or realistic or sustainable? Is it always really anything heart-based, right? Well, I took this job because, it'll do my 401k and it'll give me, doctor benefits. And, doctor benefits are great, but then the underbelly of that is I don't believe my body is resilient enough to fight off disease. So I need to have that. That's a training that's been going on, because Crystal is asking you to have faith and hope and to trust your emotional, where you've been evolving. It's not about the annihilation of who you have been, Capricorn. It's about the integration and then extracting Saturn's gifts, ruling the golden age, becoming more, taking the tools, and rather than thinking I've got to work them for you, it's like, how do I create a win-win? And I do think that it's about relationships, and not intimate relationships, but how you have relationships with money, with a burden, with responsibility, with practicality, with your spirituality and your own soul. So I think this is a time to just surrender to the journey, because the Six of Swords is saying you're still traveling somewhere, you're still on the water, you're still influenced by old stuff that is real. And Saturn coming into Aries, I absolutely think it's bringing up history, but like from such a deep level. It doesn't actually feel like it's like about one thing. It feels like it's almost like a collective energy of, lifetimes of living a certain dynamic, lifetimes of having to be overly responsible, lifetimes of having to endure something that wasn't really fun or frivolous or light. And here now you have an opportunity to actually step into that vibration, but you're in the midst of the wobble of who I was before and who I'm about to be. And I think it's about being a little gentle with that, and staying connected to your emotional body, and then saying, is this emotion stem from an old habit of obligation, or is this an exciting opportunity? And if I want to be responsible to that opportunity, or feel even a sense of obligation to it, it's a choice. It's not a thrust upon me kind of situation. Well, I think when you do 6 natal, 6 of how many planets are there? 10 tops. That's, in retrograde, there's a revisiting of some things. There's revisiting of how you're thinking, and, maybe potentially how you're feeling. And, I don't think retrogrades are necessarily negative. They're that redo. They're, a review. They're even a rest, taking a break. So maybe part of what your Mercury retrograde, depending upon where it is about resting your mind rather than trying to think your way through it. But whatever's going on with Capricorn, it's right now, it's about a journey. It's about you reestablishing the light that you shine on yourself, and then thereby on others. And that it may be hard on some level to give up old habits because even if they're out of balance, they're comfortable. They feel familiar. They feel like family. I remember when I used to smoke cigarettes, I went to this chiropractor. I've quit when I turned 50 and I'm 66. So I've been quit for a long time, but she said, you're not just quitting cigarettes, you're giving up a friend, someone you spend time with, someone who's there when you're angry and frustrated. And I never thought of a cigarette that way, but it's true, So Capricorn could be giving up old habits of practicality that feel familiar and comforting. When I don't know what to do, when everything feels chaotic or out of control, this is my natural go-to. But is that go-to really taking you into the 2.0 version, or is it just an old habit? Okay, that's it for today, everybody. And Small Wildflowers, it's so great to see you here in the chat. Love you so much. I'm thinking about you and kind of waiting for you to take the lead whenever that is. But I just want you to know my prayers are with you. I see your body as healthy and thriving and realigning to a new day, a new dawn. So we'll do that. And everybody have a great week. When I see you next, we will be we will have Uranus moving forward. We are this first part of the year. Look, check out those videos. Check out, the Mars and Aquarius one, because we got the stellium there. Check out the Saturn one. That's going to be going on for a few more weeks. I will be doing Uranus moving into Gemini. I'll be doing an eclipse video. I'm going to be doing some videos on the United States as well, because the eclipse video and I didn't do it yet, but I talked in my most recent video about the United States. In that video, the eclipse is hitting the United States moon within 1 degree. Huge. So, all right, everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you, Post It Up, for your generosity. I so appreciate your continued support. Thank you, J-Dog, for being here. And I love you all, and I'll see you next Sunday. Peace out. Hopefully I won't have cry eyes next Sunday.